You're throwing your life away, Stella. Marrying a delivery boy. Our family name will be dragged through the mud. That's what my parents told me when I begged them to come to my wedding. But what they didn't know was that Liam wasn't just delivering food from my father's restaurant. He was delivering something far bigger, something that would shake the entire city. Before I take you into the heart of the story, hit subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you don't want to miss the twist that even my parents never saw coming. My name is Stella, I'm 29 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my family made it clear I wasn't good enough. I grew up in a house where appearances meant everything. My father owned one of the most successful restaurant chains in Boston. To the outside world, we were a model of prestige, private schools, charity galas, and carefully staged photographs in glossy magazines. But inside those walls, I was invisible. At every family dinner, I watched my parents beam at my older brother, Daniel, the future heir of the empire. He was charismatic, loud, and always at the center of attention. "That's my son," my father would say proudly, raising his glass whenever Daniel spoke of new business deals. But when it came to me, Stella is responsible. That was my title. Not brilliant, not promising, just responsible. When I brought home perfect grades, they said nothing. When Daniel scraped by with barely passing marks, they bought him a car. "He'll be running the company one day," my mother explained. "You, Stella, you're better off finding a husband who can provide for you." Their words followed me like a shadow. For years, I tried to prove myself worthy. I studied harder, earned a business degree with honors, even worked part-time at my father's office. But no matter what I did, I was always treated like a background character in my own life story. And then came Liam. I first noticed him not at some glamorous event, not at one of my father's crowded restaurants, but standing at the back in trance in a delivery uniform, balancing a stack of takeout bags. He wasn't supposed to matter. At least, not in my parents' eyes. But I remember the moment he looked at me. His eyes were steady, curious, unafraid, so different from the shallow smiles I'd grown up around. They called him just a delivery boy. What they didn't know, what only I knew, was that Liam was building something in secret. And the day they finally discovered it, let's just say the tables turned in a way they never expected. "Smile, Stella. You're not the lead of this story." My mother's whisper at a family gala felt like a thread pulling tight at my ribs. She didn't know that night I had already decided to write my own story, and the first sentence began at the back door of my father's restaurant, where the city's finest walked in through marble and the truth came in through steel. My name is Stella, and I was raised on rules, unspoken, ironclad, and enforced with a smile. Rule 1. Appearances are currency. Never spend them on anything ordinary. Rule 2. Daniel shines, you support. Rule 3. If something isn't glossy enough for the society page, it isn't us. I learned those rules young. When I was 12, I won a citywide essay contest. My father shook my hand like a client and said, "Responsible work." 2 weeks later, Daniel was featured on a local sports segment for a last-second basketball shot. My parents framed the news clipping, called relatives, and threw a barbecue with custom cupcakes shaped like tiny basketballs. I remember scraping frosting from a paper plate and wondering why responsible felt like a lock on a door I couldn't open. At 16, I finished the semester with straight A's. My reward was a polite nod and a ride home. That same month, Daniel clipped the corner of the Bentley backing out of the garage. He got a new car and a speech about learning from mistakes. Future leaders take risks. I learned something too. In my house, narrative mattered more than facts. And my narrative was steady, replaceable, quiet. So I became excellent at what quiet girls do, listening, noticing, fitting puzzle pieces together in my head until patterns emerged. I learned balance sheets, read case studies for fun, studied supply chains the way other kids studied celebrities. If I couldn't be the lead, I could at least be the author of my own understanding. That skill is why I saw Liam before anyone else did. I didn't meet him in the chandelier light of the front dining room. I saw him where the cold air bites, at the back door, under a dented awning streaked with rain, balancing 3 insulated bags and nudging the door with his elbow. He was just another uniform in the rush of service. Navy cap, scuffed sneakers, breath fogging in the alley. Except he wasn't. He paused to let a busser pass, then shifted his weight to keep a bag perfectly level on a patch of black ice. The movement was tiny, precise. He glanced at the ticket stapled to the bag, then looked up at the kitchen clock, and this is what caught me. He smiled like he knew the future arrival time. Most people glance. He measured. The first words he ever said to me were not flattering or hungry for access. He didn't know I was the owner's daughter. I was just a woman with a clipboard near a stack of flour bags. "Careful with those crates," he said, adjusting his strap. "The bottom left is cracked. If you rotate it, you'll get 1 more week before you lose structural integrity." I stared at the crate. He was right. The hairline split ran from the staple to the seam. "How did you?" He tipped the brim of his cap. "You can tell by how it flexes when the cold hits it." I laughed, surprised. "You're a crate whisperer? Only on Thursdays." A quick grin. "I'm Liam." It should have ended there, banter and gone. But later that night, when a snow flurry turned the alley into white noise, I saw him again, standing by the back door, tapping something into his phone while the line cooks called out temps like an orchestra. 180. Medium rare walking in too. He wasn't doom scrolling or texting, he was timing. He watched the printer spitting tickets, the host stands wave patterns, the door swings. He was mapping the heartbeat of the building. A week after that, I caught him in the stairwell during a lull. "You time everything," I said. "Why?" He checked his watch, then me. "Because the kitchen runs on physics and people. If you don't respect both, heat dies in the box and someone eats a cold steak." It was so simple and so right that I felt a ridiculous rush of affection for the thought alone. I looked down at the laminated VIP list in my hand, full of donors and last names that could buy seasons. "You talk like an engineer." "Big word for delivery boy." He shrugged. "You're not front of house." "Big word for an invisible daughter." I smiled, and that was the moment, the first time someone didn't flinch when I told the truth in a joke. We met for coffee 2 days later. It was supposed to be 15 minutes between deliveries. He'd parked his bike outside, snow crystals winking off the chain. We spoke for 3 hours. He asked how order batching affected table turns. I asked why he rerouted himself 3 blocks to pick up from the bakery before our kitchen fired desserts. He laughed. "Because your pastry chef refuses to box anything that sits longer than 90 seconds. I'd rather ride the extra blocks than watch a lemon tart die." Die. "Everything dies if it waits for the wrong thing," he said, eyes warm, as if he was talking about more than tarts. The 3rd time we met, he didn't bring a helmet. He brought a notebook. We sat at a tiny table by the window of a quiet cafe, salt halos crisping under our boots, and he flipped to a page that made my throat go dry. Flow diagrams. Order spikes. Prep station load. Driver clustering. Kitchen throttling. Dynamic ETAs. On the top of the page, in simple block letters, a name. Sidor. "What is it?" I asked. "It's an orchestration layer for restaurants," he said, fingers resting lightly on the paper. "Optimizes kitchen fire timing with delivery routes. Predictive demand, rider pooling, station balancing, the works. The app feeds the kitchen a firing sequence based on where riders are and where they'll be, not just where they were. Keeps food hot, cuts waste, and gives realistic ETAs to customers so hosts stop lying about 10 minutes that are never 10. I traced the line that ran from host stand to rider mesh, then to table post service. He'd built a nervous system for chaos. "You built this." I whispered. "I'm building it," he said, the correction gentle. "Nights. Weekends. Between runs. Being on the bike is the only way to keep it honest. If I sit in an office, I start designing for a fantasy kitchen. The back door tells you the truth." Outside, a plow scraped past. In my chest, something old and tight loosened by a fraction, the way a stuck lid finally gives with the smallest twist. "Why tell me?" I asked. "Because you didn't blink when I said delivery boy. Everyone else hears that and stops listening." He held my gaze. "Because you see systems. And because your father's chain is the best lab in the city, if I can ever earn permission to test ethically. Ethically. The word mattered. I had spent my life inside a spotless brand that could be remarkably comfortable with gray, so the way he planted that stake felt like a compass snapping north. From that night on, a secret threaded our days. Sidor lived between us. He rode, I modeled. He logged actual route times. I built unit economics so clean they could pass an audit. He said, "The margin is in melted minutes, no one counts." I said, "Then we measure minutes like money." We were two invisible people building something visible. At home, the rules of the house continued the farce. Daniel joined the investment round for a boutique cocktail concept. My mother announced at dinner, tapping her glass. "He's so forward-thinking." He also misplaced an invoice for $40,000. I said, calm. My father never looked at me. "Don't be petty, Stella. Your brother takes risks." The room laughed obediently. I reached for the water, quiet as snowfall, and thought about the back door. When I finally told Liam the part of my life I hated, the society pages, the pretense, the way responsible was weaponized, he didn't offer glittering rebellion. He offered a question. "Do you want them to see you?" he asked. "Or do you just want to stop letting them decide who you are?" I didn't know you could separate those two. We carved out a world between shifts and storms. After a late run, we'd climb to the roof of his building in Somerville with paper cups of tea and a portable charger keeping his phone alive. He'd sketch a new heat map while I read off conversion assumptions. He'd say, "Kitchen 3 is your bottleneck." I'd say, "Then Kitchen 3 sets price, not marketing." The city hummed below us like an industrial lullaby. Only I knew what he was building. Only he knew who I really was when I wasn't performing responsible. And still, because fairy tales love a test, my family reeled the line. One Sunday, my mother texted, "Family dinner. Bring your friend if you must. 3 dots. Please tell him to use the front entrance this time." I stared at the screen until the words bled. The front entrance. Status over systems. Marble over steel. I typed, "We'll be there at 7, and felt my stomach drop like an elevator. When I told Liam, he didn't flinch. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I know." He looked at me the way he had looked at that cracked crate, as if he could see the stress line before it split. "Then let's decide what this dinner is for. Not for them. For us." "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, sliding his notebook across the table, "we walk through the front door like equals. And if they try to make me small, we won't argue, we'll measure. We'll watch their system the way we watch a kitchen. And when it's time, we'll choose what to do with what we see." I exhaled, slow. "And if it gets ugly? Then we leave," he said simply. "We don't bargain with a clock that's already wrong." I nodded. It felt like placing a hand on the right lever at last. At 6:52 p.m., we stood under the chandelier light. Daniel clapped Liam on the shoulder like a man greeting a valet. My mother's smile was winter sunlight. My father's eyes flicked to the dining room, to the donors, back to us. "Welcome," my mother said, voice ringing. "Do try the halibut. It traveled beautifully." Liam's gaze drifted to the pass, to the printer, to the servers threading the room with plates cooling degree by degree. He gave me the smallest smile. I smiled back, steady, and the rule I had lived by my whole life finally cracked. Because 8 minutes into that dinner, my father raised his glass to real ambition. Daniel announced a new loyalty deal that would cut independent couriers from our routes, and a manager leaned in to whisper a sentence that turned my blood to ice. "FYI," he said softly, eyes on Liam's cap, "we're phasing out all in-house delivery next quarter. No exceptions." Liam's jaw worked once. He set down his water. And I realized the test arriving wasn't just about respect. It was about whether the people who worshipped the front door understood what was coming through the back. "Enjoy the halibut. It traveled beautifully." That was my mother's version of a welcome, a line rehearsed for the donors at the next table, but delivered with a glance sharp enough to slice me open. She didn't care that Liam was beside me, sitting straighter than anyone else at that glossy mahogany table. To her, he was still a delivery boy who'd wandered into the wrong room. I had braced myself for condescension, but what unfolded was worse. Silence dressed in silverware. My father dominated the table, as always, holding court with Daniel at his side. They spoke of expansions, wine partnerships, and strategic acquisitions. They spoke as though Liam weren't even there. Every time he offered a thoughtful remark, "Have you considered how delivery times impact repeat customers?" My father's gaze slid past him to Daniel, who smirked as if to say, "You don't belong here." The cruelest cut came not in words but in subtraction. 6 plates arrived, but only 5 glasses of wine. The server stuttered, cheeks red, when my father said casually, "That won't be necessary for him. He's driving, isn't he?" As though Liam were a chauffeur, not my partner. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. I wanted to defend him, to shout, but Liam laid his hand lightly over mine under the table. His thumb brushed once against my knuckle.
"Come.
Observe. Measure." That was his way. And so I did. But the room betrayed itself. I saw it in the small things. The way my mother's smile grew brighter when Bradley, Sophia's fiancé, mentioned his family's hotel chain. The way Daniel's half-baked loyalty program idea drew applause just because he wore the crown of future heir. I saw the numbers hidden behind the performance. They didn't realize Liam was doing the same. He watched how long entrees lingered under the heat lamps before servers whisked them away. He tracked which courses aligned with which conversations, how the rhythm of dining shifted every time my father paused to toast. To them, it was a dinner. To Liam, it was data. And, to me, it was confirmation. This family of mine wasn't a family. It was a stage play, and Liam was the only one who could see the ropes and pulleys. After dessert, Daniel leaned back in his chair and delivered the blow. "We're finally eliminating in-house delivery. Too messy. Too unpredictable. Third-party apps only from here on." A murmur of approval circled the table. My father beamed. "It's the future, Stella. No more sweaty riders coming through the back. No more clutter." I felt Liam stiffen beside me. His hand tightened in mine. In that moment, I realized the system he was building, the secret Sidor app, the one only I knew about, wasn't just a dream. It was about to collide head-on with my family's empire. The dinner ended in hollow applause and the clinking of glasses. When we stepped into the winter air, I shivered, but not from the cold. "Liam," I whispered, "they're going to kill independent delivery." He looked at me, eyes steady in the glow of the streetlight. "Then we show them what happens when you kill the wrong system." For the first time, I felt it, not just hope, but inevitability. My family thought they had closed a door on Liam. In truth, they had opened the wrong one. And when the world saw what was waiting on the other side, the name Williams would never sound the same again. "You're marrying a delivery boy, Stella. One day, you'll regret it." That was my father's last sentence to me before walking out of the restaurant that night. What he didn't know was that regret was already on its way, but it wouldn't belong to me. 2 weeks after that dinner, the city woke up to a headline that would silence every smug smile at my family's table. From delivery runs to disrupting dining, Liam Parker's Sidor app raises $20 million in series of funding. There it was, his photo stretched across the Boston Business Journal. Liam, the so-called delivery boy, standing in front of a chalkboard filled with flow diagrams, smiling in the same calm way he smiled when balancing crates or sketching in his notebook. Overnight, the man they mocked became the man every investor wanted to meet. I still remember the morning it broke. My phone buzzed nonstop, texts from friends, coworkers, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Isn't this your fiancé? Stella, you've hit the jackpot." Jackpot? As if love had been a lottery ticket. They didn't understand. I had loved Liam when he was just a name on a delivery schedule. I had chosen him when my parents wouldn't even save him a wine glass. This headline wasn't my jackpot. It was our justice. The article spread like wildfire. CNBC called him the mind reinventing restaurant logistics. Local stations ran stories of him biking through snowstorms, gathering real-time data for his models. Investors praised his grit and genius. But the sweetest part? Every news anchor made sure to mention where Sidor's prototype had begun, inside the kitchens of William's dining group, my father's empire. Without knowing, my family had been the incubator for the very system that would challenge them. That evening, my mother called. Her voice, honeyed now, no trace of disdain. Darling, why didn't you tell us Liam was an entrepreneur? We must celebrate. Let's host a dinner at the club. I cut her off, my voice steady. You told me to enjoy marrying my delivery boy. You told me not to embarrass you.
So no, Mom.
This success isn't yours to toast. There was a pause. Then the smallest crack in her tone. You sound just like him. For the first time, it wasn't an insult. Days later, I walked into my father's office. He was holding the same magazine, Liam's face on the cover. His fingers tapped the desk, a nervous rhythm I had never seen in the man who used to toast Daniel's every word. This app of his, he muttered. If it scales, it could disrupt the entire industry. I leaned forward. Not could, Dad. Will. His eyes flicked up to mine, searching for the obedient daughter he used to dismiss. She was gone. That weekend, Liam and I strolled through the same garden where he had first told me about Sidor. Cherry blossoms drifted onto the path. He squeezed my hand. You know this isn't just revenge, right? He said softly. This is about building something better, for restaurants, for riders, for everyone stuck in broken systems. I smiled. I know. But admit it, watching their faces when they realize who you really are, that's pretty satisfying. He laughed, low and warm. Maybe a little. The best part wasn't the money or the media attention. It was the peace. For the first time, I didn't crave my parents' approval. Their rejection had freed me, and Liam's triumph had proven what I always believed. The people you love for who they are, not for their titles, will always rewrite the ending. And as the sun set that night, I realized my wedding might have been an embarrassment to them. But to me, it was the beginning of the sweetest revenge, a life lived well, on our own terms. Enjoy marrying your delivery boy. We won't be embarrassed with you. Those were my mother's last words to me the night before my wedding. I went to sleep with that sentence pressing into my chest like a stone. But the next day, as I stood in my gown with Liam's hands holding mine, I understood something they never would. Love does not need their permission. The morning of August 14th was clear and bright, sunlight spilling across Riverside Gardens, where Liam and I had chosen to marry. It wasn't a cathedral or a ballroom. It was wildflowers in mason jars, fairy lights strung across wooden beams, and laughter that wasn't forced. It was ours. I glanced at the front row. 2 seats sat empty, stark against the white folding chairs filled with friends, colleagues, and even neighbors who had seen Liam biking through storms. Those empty chairs were supposed to hold my parents. Instead, they became symbols, proof that absence sometimes speaks louder than presence. For a heartbeat, the sight crushed me. But then Liam looked at me, his smile steady, eyes warm, and the weight lifted. When the officiant asked if we had vows, Liam reached into his jacket pocket and unfolded a small, creased paper. His voice shook at first, but steadied as he spoke. Stella, you saw me when I was invisible. You loved me when the world called me ordinary. You believed in Sidor before anyone else could spell it. I promise to spend the rest of my life proving you were right to choose me, not for what I build, but for who I am. Tears blurred my vision. My turn. Liam, they called you a delivery boy, but I saw the man behind the uniform. Not the status, not the title, the man. And choosing you will always be the smartest decision of my life. You are my equal, my partner, my home. The applause that followed wasn't polite. It was thunderous, joyful, real. At the reception, my Uncle Henry, my father's brother, the only one in my family who had always treated me with unconditional love, stood to give a toast. He cleared his throat, raised his glass, and said, "Success is not measured in square footage or profit margins. Success is here, 2 people who chose love over fear, truth over appearances. I'm proud of you, Stella. I'm proud of you, Liam." The crowd cheered. For the first time, I felt what family was supposed to feel like. Later that evening, while fairy lights glowed above us, a friend handed me her phone.
You need to see this, she said.
There on the screen was a photo of Liam on the cover of Forbes Tech, the headline bold and inescapable. Sidor, the app that could change the restaurant industry forever. My parents hadn't come to the wedding, but I knew they had seen that. And I knew they finally understood what their pride had cost them. I leaned against Liam, watching our friends dance under the stars. He kissed my temple. "You okay?" he asked. I smiled. "More than okay. I think this is the first day of the rest of our life." He squeezed my hand. And the first day of the rest of their regret. As the night ended, I realized my parents' rejection had given me the greatest gift. Freedom. Freedom to love without their rules, to succeed without their approval, to live without their shadow. They called my wedding an embarrassment. But years later, when the name Liam Parker became synonymous with innovation, when Sidor expanded across the country, when people spoke of the Parker model in boardrooms my father used to dominate, who really was embarrassed then? Not me. Not us. Because the best revenge isn't screaming or proving them wrong in words. The best revenge is living a life so full, so bright, so undeniably real, that their silence becomes the loudest thing they own. "We just want to talk, Stella. We made a mistake." Those were my mother's words the day she showed up unannounced at my home, years after my wedding. The wedding she and my father had called an embarrassment. It had been 5 years since that night under the fairy lights at Riverside Gardens. 5 years since Liam and I promised to live on our own terms. And in those 5 years, everything had changed. Sidor had expanded across the country, reshaping how restaurants handled delivery. Liam was no longer the man balancing crates in a freezing alley. He was the CEO featured on conference stages, the innovator investors fought to meet. But to me, he was still the man who made tea on stormy nights and who noticed the hairline crack in a wooden crate. We built a life together filled with late-night laughter, small victories, and yes, success bigger than either of us had dared to imagine. We didn't just survive without my parents' approval. We thrived. And then one afternoon, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, there they were, my mother in her pearls, my father in his tailored suit, both looking older than I remembered, their confidence cracked. "Stella," my father began, clearing his throat. We should never have missed your wedding. We misjudged Liam. We misjudged you." My mother nodded quickly, her eyes darting around our home, lingering on the framed magazine covers on the wall. "We like to make things right, to be part of your lives, to know our grandchildren when the time comes." For a moment, I stood frozen. The girl I once was, the one who craved their approval, rose up in my chest. But she was no longer in control. I thought of the empty chairs at my wedding. I thought of Liam's steady hands wiping my tears. I thought of every silence that screamed louder than words. So I looked at them, calm and clear. "You didn't misjudge Liam," I said. "You revealed yourselves. You showed me that your love was conditional, based on appearances, not on me. You told me my wedding was an embarrassment. You made your choice. And it wasn't us." My father's face tightened. My mother's lips trembled. "But Stella, we're family." "Family isn't defined by blood," I interrupted softly. "Family is the people who show up, who believe in you, who love without conditions. Liam is my family. Our friends are our family. Uncle Henry was our family. You chose not to be." I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stepped back and said, "I wish you well. But you don't get to walk in now that the world sees Liam's worth. You missed the moment to see mine." And then gently I closed the door. That night, Liam held me on the couch as the weight of it all settled in. "Do you regret it?" he asked. I shook my head. "No." For the first time, I feel free. We sat in silence, the kind that isn't heavy but healing. And I realized the ultimate revenge wasn't Liam's success or the headlines or the millions. It was this peace, love, a life lived without the need for their approval. They had chosen status. I had chosen love. And love had already won. And that is my story. They called my wedding an embarrassment, but in the end, the only shame they carried was their own.